All right. Good morning, everybody. Happy Tuesday. Today we got Bill Brennan with Goosehead Insurance. Bill is the biggest Trace McSorley fan on the planet and a big advocate of Penn State sports. But in addition to that, he runs Goosehead Insurance and is an awesome guy. He's going to talk to us here just about everything insurance, including flood insurance. So with that being the case, I'll hand it over to him.
Well, thanks for that very honest opening. I mean, huge Trace McSorley fan. Yeah. So anyway, well, I really appreciate the opportunity to come in here and talk with you guys about flood insurance. I actually did have a presentation that I was going to go over. One of those people, if you have questions, don't hesitate, just ask. Really, the goal today is just to kind of hopefully everybody picks up one or two little nuggets, and you'll obviously have my contact information afterwards. So if there is any questions, certainly don't hesitate to reach out. So Brooks will allow me to, it's allowing me to share. So okay. Is that okay if I go ahead and do that?
Yep.
All right, perfect. Now I just got to get the slideshow started. So perfect. So once again, my name is Bill Brennan. I'm an agency owner here with Goosehead in the Camp Hill area. Actually, next year I'll be moving down closer to your office down there on the Carlisle Pike. So me and a friend we're building a building there across from the Chick-fil-A. So I'll be a very hungry boy and eat Chick-fil-A at the time. This is my contact information. My cell phone is always the best way to reach me. So if you have any questions, I'm always trying to be available. I know that realtors, our business comes from realtors and lenders during the home buying process. So I know things can be a little urgent, especially now for buyers. So if you have questions, don't ever hesitate. Please reach out. If I'm available, I'll certainly get back to you as soon as I can. So little bit about me. Born in Shamokin. I live in the metropolis of Edders, went to York. I have a wife, two daughters. I love playing golf and beating Brooks in basketball and John and Henry in golf. And hanging out with those guys. So who Goosehead is, a little bit about, we're a national broker. We were built in 2003, went public in 2018. We have over $1.5 billion in total written premiums and continues to grow significantly. I actually had to update that. We grew $500 million in premium in over a year. So we are very fast growing. So I think this is the biggest thing, and why I joined Goosehead is we have a 97.8 client satisfaction, which is really kind of hard to come by. These are the products that we offer. So today we're obviously going to talk a lot about flood, but we do everything, home, auto, umbrella, renters. We do property dwelling coverage for landlords, investors. We do small commercial, really it's got to be a right fit. And then obviously the toys that come out around summertime. So I think the biggest thing for us is we're a large broker. So I have 55 carriers, so we're able to mix and match. And I think the biggest thing for your clients and your buyers is, we are able to, maybe we put their home with Travelers and their auto with Plymouth Rock, and we can save them a little bit more money. Don't believe everything you see on TV. Bundling does make sense in some cases, but it also doesn't make sense in a lot more cases. So we're always happy to kind of take the time and make sure our clients are finding the right fit. So flood insurance is the one biggest exclusion on a homeowner's insurance policy. So it is not covered and is not endorsable on homeowners insurance. So that's a big myth that a lot of home buyers actually don't know. Floods happen in all 50 states. Number one natural disaster in the U.S. Hurricane Harvey, which was down in Texas, 80% of the flooded homes from the storm did not have flood insurance. Okay. If your home is there's a 26% chance of a flood claim during a 30-year mortgage in a high-risk flood zone, and only a 9% chance of a fire claim. So folks really concentrate on, my fire dwelling, my fire coverage, which obviously extremely important. But at the same point, flood is actually a lot more higher risk for those folks that are in a high-risk flood zone. The flood zones and procedures, there's two types. NFIP, that's run by FEMA. The max coverage is $250,000 for the dwelling. Spoiler alert, it's run by the government, so it's not very efficient. And quite frankly, there's a lot better options out there. They are responsible for the mapping and updating flood zones. So there is a preferred risk program, and those are for homes that are in B, C, and X. Commonly, most folks don't purchase flood insurance if you're in an X, but it doesn't certainly mean that your home will not flood. One of the things that we do when we are working with a client for homeowners insurance, we will look at the map, because sometimes, pretty blue lines show up right around people's properties. And I tell folks that pretty blue lines doesn't mean the water's going to stop there. So if it's that close, there's a good chance that your home could flood. So the good news is for those folks, they get cheap flood insurance. So if they wanted to purchase that, they can actually get a very good discount on that. And then you obviously have our high risk programs. Generally in our area, what we see are A and AE flood zones. Okay. Private flood insurers. So Aon, Neptune, Beyond Flood. I have 6 private flood carriers. Currently, I think we're working on getting 2 more in our area. They are based on science. A company like Neptune uses topographic mapping. So even though a home might be considered in a flood zone by the government, Neptune might say, hey, that home sits 3 inches higher. They do a measurement from the center of the house, and then say, yeah, that center of that house sits 3 feet above where the base flood elevation is. And they can actually get a very good flood price for a home that's in a high risk zone. Okay. So on the policies, it's a single peril policy, which that means it only covers if there is a flood. Okay. So it doesn't, like where homeowners is fire, wind, hail, so many different types of coverages. The coverage A is dwelling. Replacement cost and actual cash value policies are available. One thing we will talk about with private flood carriers is a lot of them like matching. Okay, so if the coverage A on the homeowner's insurance policy is, let's use basic math of 200,000, they'll want the coverage A to be 200,000 as well. A lot of times folks will try to save a couple bucks by trying to do whatever the loan amount is, things along those lines. Most of these carriers are now catching up to that. And actually the homeowners insurance companies, a lot of them, not all, will require them to match as well. Personal property. So in the NFIP program, it is actual cash value coverage only. With private flood, you can actually get replacement cost. For those that aren't familiar with the insurance world, replacement cost is very important. I use the example of if you have an actual cash value coverage policy on your personal property, you have a 10-year-old 60-inch TV, you're getting $50 or $10. With a replacement cost, you're going to get a brand new 60-inch TV. So very important. And then once again, the max limit through the NFIP program is $250,000. You can purchase through an excess flood carrier, but those are quite expensive. No coverage on the NFIP for other structures or loss of use. Other structures are detached garages, sheds, fences, things that aren't attached to the home. Loss of use is going to be for if you can't live in the home because of a flood, you're going to have to pay to live somewhere else or go move in with friends and family. And, that's never fun for anybody. But a lot of the private flood carriers do offer these types of coverages for very inexpensive options. So does anybody have any questions so far on any of that? I kind of ran through a lot of that. It's kind of basic info, but any questions so far? Okay. So this is how the government kind of measures. They use basically coastal stuff. I live on the coast of the Susquehanna River, but that doesn't count apparently. but if you're looking, they've used a measurement of what's called the base flood elevation. It's where the 100-year floodwater elevation would be. If the home was built prior to the community entered the NFIP program, then that's kind of where those measurements will be. So if you can see like this one house, the yellow house there in the center, it's showing the base flood elevation, and the house is several feet underneath. So generally what that means is that home is not going to get a very favorable flood rating, but depending on how it kind of all works. And this kind of just gives a little bit of illustration on how they do some of these measurements. Okay. Under the Flood Act 2012, so this kind of shows you with the premium at 4 feet below base flood elevation, how much the premium might be for the cost of a year. Same thing if it's at base flood elevation or if it's below. So this kind of shows you when this data comes in. This guy also shows like how they come up with the rating system, just a little bit of an example, just so you can kind of see, what these look like. We're going to talk about elevation certificates very soon. That's a very important part for realtors. If you're either selling a home that's in a flood zone, or you have a prospective buyer that's maybe looking at a home that's in a flood zone, I will always ask if there's an elevation certificate that exists. Generally in our area, I usually get what's an elevation certificate, and no, my house has never flooded in 100 years, and I've only lived there for 5. But so it just kind of it is an important thing. So we're going to make sure we talk a lot about that. So flood insurance is a little bit different than a homeowner's insurance, auto insurance policy. So there are waiting periods to prevent people from purchasing flood insurance. So, hurricane coming, they're like, hey, can I get flood insurance for tomorrow? It kind of prevents people from doing that type of thing. There is a standard 30-day wait. So if somebody is looking to purchase a home and their home's in a preferred risk, I always tell people, that's a great time to do it if they think their home's at risk. With a lender or a loan closing, there's no waiting period, so coverage starts right away. And if the map would change, they get 1 day before the coverage starts. So map revisions do happen every so often. I think the last major one was 2016, I think, somewhere in that ballpark, 2016, 2014. Flood cancellations. So unlike other insurance, you have to have a valid reason to cancel flood midterm. So your auto insurance, if your rates go up, you can change whenever you want. Homeowners insurance is the same. You can change midterm. You're not locked into that full term. There are certain types of insurance that are, but your standard stuff is not. And it has to be you either sold a home, there's a new flood zone determination, or if insurance is no longer required by your mortgage company. Okay. Where's my elevation? I lost my elevation certificate one. So hold on, let me see if I can find my elevation. There we go. Sorry. Let me go to that slide. It kind of blanked that one out on me. Nope. Sorry. There was a couple slides that were hiding here. So I do apologize about that. Elevation certificates. So this is the part that I wanted to make sure that we spoke about. Elevation certificates show where the lowest level of the house is compared to the base flood for that location. It's done by a certified engineer. So if you guys ever need somebody, I have a company that does it. Costs about $800 in this insert sarcasm buyer's market, wink, wink. It's hard to negotiate those. You used to be able to say, hey, maybe the seller should pay for this because it follows the house, blah, 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 this and that, help with a sale, but I don't think that happens right now in this market. This is the part that I wanted to make sure that I got across to a lot of folks is if a buyer is FHA, you almost certainly need an elevation certificate. Bill's rule of thumb is if it's FHA and it's flood, proceed with caution as a realtor, okay? Because if there is no elevation certificate, go back to the slide where it shows the below 4 feet. That's what they will assume. So the government assumes the absolute worst, that home will flood no matter what, okay? FHA does not allow, is the only loan program that does not allow private flood insurance to be used. So it is a major disadvantage to a person who is an FHA buyer looking to buy a home in a flood zone, okay? So if you have questions, please ask. I am always happy to answer those questions. It is a big thing that happens where a sale can blow up for you guys last minute because the flood insurance is $6,000. And it's a nightmare for everybody. So please don't ever hesitate. If you have a client that maybe wants to go look at a house in a flood zone, it takes me 5 minutes to run those quotes. I'm happy to give you an idea of what it might cost to make sure your buyer can afford it, to make sure that it makes sense, and things along those lines. There was like just one or two other ones that didn't show up, and I'll have to figure that technical difficulties out. And this is another myth is won't the government pay, right? So not necessarily. Basically the president has to declare a natural disaster, and then it is a loan, okay, from the government. There is an example here that Hurricane Ike's disaster assistance loans carry an interest rate of 10%. Okay, so the government will not actually pay. It's not free money. So it is just definitely something to consider. I always say there are some things that you can recover from financially. This is a tough one. And then there are some other helpful resources, websites, things along those lines that we always kind of use to ask questions. But like I said, I love to help. So if there is anything that I can answer, certainly don't ever hesitate to reach out and chat. So questions. I tried to stay to about 15, 20 minutes so I could answer some questions, and hopefully I didn't fly through too much of it, but
Bill, I got one for you to kick it off. So you kind of touched on that normal homeowners policies don't cover any type of flood or stormwater scenarios, which, can obviously be devastating, including, I think one of those slides that didn't come up for you when I read through your slide deck before was like, one? Is that the one where it's like, broken, water line situation? Yeah. I think there was a property in Allendale not too long ago that had a situation where a water line had a leak in it. It was going underground that nobody had any ideas about. Over time, it eroded the foundation and caused a whole bunch of structural damage and problems that ultimately were fought over for a long period of time because insurance didn't want to, cover that because it wasn't something that was on their policy. Is there any type of like umbrella coverage or something smaller, simpler that homeowners can elect to buy to cover them in those types of scenarios?
Well, that specific one you're talking about, I actually think came down to almost a sinkhole. Okay. So the water was caused. So that this is my understanding of that scenario. So I'm going to give you my best interpretation of that. So yeah, it was caused by some water that ended up being a sinkhole. That probably would have fallen under the definition of sinkhole coverage that you can endorse on a homeowner's insurance policy. But generally speaking, sinkhole is, unless you're buying a house in Palmyra, right? It's not something that folks generally look at because it costs about $100 a year roughly. So, I mean, there's not really anything from a flood perspective. So there are things like heavy rains. So sometimes folks get confused with backup of sewer and drain. So heavy rains can come in and the sub pump can stop working and it backs up into the home. And that's an endorsement that folks can purchase. That's something that we recommend. In Pennsylvania, it accounts for about 25% of all homeowners insurance claims is water backup coverage. And that is usually caused by heavy rains, where some folks confuse that with flood insurance, right? So, and that is something that we can easily endorse on a policy, fairly affordable. I just did a policy this morning for a client that it was $20,000 worth of coverage for $42 a year. So, yeah, hopefully that answers your question, Brooks.
Yeah, absolutely. Anyone else? Anyone have any questions here for Bill?
I don't have a question. I just want to say that we have a local Goosehead insurance person here in Chambersburg, Corey Path, which Bill,
Mr. Corey. I didn't know which one of you was the Chambersburg girl. I found you now. I snuck you out. I talked to Corey last night.
Of us. But he texted me this morning and said, hey, you're having, you're meeting with Bill. He's a good friend of mine. So I said, okay, I'll make sure I brag about you a little bit. But we use Corey a lot, and it's really nice to see, Bill, that your personality and your service, it seems like, is very similar. So I would recommend working with these guys whenever you can.
Thank you very much. Corey's a great dude. He really is. And I'll tease him and say that I taught him everything he knows. So, but thank you for that. And I was going to make a mention of that earlier today, but I forgot. So.
I just had one comment.
Oh God.
No, if I need insurance quotes or help, and it's Friday night at 7:30, and you know how last minute this market is whenever we're dealing with buyers, and we have to deal with, people coming in and offers are due in an hour. Bill does make time to get us quotes and everything that we need. And he's been a huge help for my team, including Swen and Jake. So if you ever need help, you know how we love communication on weekends as agents. Bill's definitely your guy, and he's really good with clients too. So just want to appreciate you, Bill.
I guess I'm going to have to buy you lunch now. All right. Thank you, John. Appreciate you, buddy.
All right, guys. If we don't have any other questions, we'll get this wrapped up. I'll put a quick plug in for Bill too. Bill's a great guy, despite being a Notre Dame fan and giving us crap for all us Penn State fans out there. But, he's awesome. I know his company really works well too with title companies and lenders. That communication is excellent. So if you guys ever have any questions or need any real estate insurance needs, and also other insurance, but reach out to Bill and pick his brain.
Brooks, one quick thing before we leave. Are you able to demonstrate real quick, because I know this is recorded and hopefully people are watching it who are not on the call. Can you show in bright how to find out if a house is near or close to the flood zone?
Yeah, absolutely.
If you could share your screen and show us.
Yeah, It's a good point for those who don't know.
It's a good way to when you go in a listing, I always screenshot it and take it with me so that, it shows that you're prepared for the listing appointment.
All right. Can everyone see my screen?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay. So I'm just going to demonstrate with one of these new active listings here. Let's go internet. So you're just going to pull up any one of them, and you're going to go to the map section. It brings up a new window, and all you have to do is go up to these layers, and you can overlay a bunch of different ones, obviously middle schools, high schools, but the one we're looking for is the flood zones. And this gives you a fairly accurate representation of where those flood zones are at and whether the property is in it. So again, you just want to go to that map section of that bright listing. And then up here in the top left, you click on the layers, and that's where you get all the overlays. And, you know, we'll show you flood zone X, A, AE, everything Bill went over.
And, you know, just to kind of reiterate with this, there is a website, and I'm going to draw a blank, but it's one of the ones that we all don't love. It's like Realtor or Redfin or something like that. There is one of them that actually does have a flood zone listing right below the property address. I'm drawing a blank on which one. I try not to go, but they are fairly accurate. But if you pull up this map, you know, for example, and you say, okay, I'm you know, Front Street, you know, here or whatever, you know, whatever it might be, and it looks really close. That's where I tell people it's worth a you know, text, a call, you know, to someone like myself, or if you're down there in Chambersburg, you know, someone like Corey. Certainly, you know, we can run those and give you a really accurate description. Or last week, I had a client looking to buy a house in Marysville, I think it was, some town up there in Perry County. And we were actually able to get the property out of a flood zone because the house itself was not in a flood zone, the backyard was. So, and that was actually a big determining factor for the lady putting an offer in on the house. So, you know, her flood insurance would have been $6,000 or $7,000 a year. And now it's, well, she's not required to purchase it, but you know, her and I had a long conversation about, you know, it might not stop at your backyard. So, you know, that's something that we can also do to try to help. I'm surprised that the Susquehanna River is a flood zone right in the middle of it.
One other tip too, I would say, and Tim gave me this tip years ago, is if you go to a listing, and even if it's in the middle of nowhere, and the name of the street has a body of water in it, like Spring Creek Road, check the flood map.
Oh, that's such a great point. I get it all the time, like Creek View right there. You know, it's Canal Road. I every time I'm like, oh, that's probably in a flood zone because that canal definitely floods. I'm sure of it. So that's actually that's really great advice because people get surprised by it a lot. I mean, there's some spots in Lancaster, Mechanicsburg that you wouldn't believe are in a flood zone. And
yeah, like Weathercroft. Yeah.
Yes. I mean, I like running. I'm like, that's in a flood zone. Like, okay, like, you know, like it doesn't even like ring a bell sometimes, you know, and it's kind of shocking. But yeah.
Yeah. There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah. One of these areas. Alrighty, guys. If you guys don't have any other questions for Bill, we'll wrap this up. Bill, thank you a ton for your time here this morning and going over this stuff with us.
Hopefully you guys found it very helpful. If I can ever answer any more questions in depth, don't ever hesitate. Please reach out. And yeah, I appreciate it very much.
Thanks, Sounds guys. Good. All right, guys. Have a great day.
Bye.